Fair far, your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon them a' you take your place. Pinch, tripe, or therm, well, you're worthy of a grace as lang's my arm. The groaning trencher there you fill, your herd is like the distant hill. Your pin would help to mend a mill in time of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife see rustic labor dight, and cut ye up ready slay, trenching your gushing entrails bright, like ony ditch. Then, oh, what a glorious sight! Warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive. They'll take the hindmost on they drive, till all their wheel-swelled kites belive are bent like drums. Then old Gidman mace like to rive, bethanked hums. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio that would staw a sow, or fricassee would make her spew with perfect scorner? Look down with sneering, scornful view on sic a dinner. Poor diddle, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a gid whiplash, his knave a knit, through bloody flood or field to dash. Oh, how unfit! But mark the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread. Clapping his walled knave a blade, he'll make it whistle. And legs and arms and heads will sned, like taps a thistle. Ye powers wad make mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae skinking ware the chops and luggies. But if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. What does it mean to be a Scot? For the longest time, you know, in Scotland, that clan identity and the notion of being a part of a clan, part of a family, in Scotland started to fade into the 1900s. You know, a lot of people were trying to get rid of that old image of the Brigadoonish Scotland, this magical place over the hills. Old times are preserved there, and you have tartan everything. And then the Scottish identity really started to grow in the US and in Australia and in other places where Scots had gone. And you saw the rise of Highland Games, you know, especially in the 1950s, 60s, 70s and on into the turn of the century. There was more excitement over Highland Games.
The Highland Games call to mind a celebration of Scottish unity. Traditional music, dance, and athletic feats contribute to the fun atmosphere, but are not just an extension of culture.
The original Highland Games are the heavy athletic games. And word has it that the heavy athletic games were held to train warriors back in ancient times. For instance, the caber toss, that could have been for throwing logs so that they laid across creeks or across moats in ancient times during warfare.
One thing that's interesting about the Highland Games is the shot put and the hammer throw are the original games that are now done in the modern Olympics. They patterned it after the Scottish Games. Also the method of scoring and how to run the Scottish Games competition was used as the model for the modern Olympics.
A draw for both spectators and participants, competitions allow for displays of skill in multiple areas. Dance, music, and heavy athletics anchor the game's activities. Highland dancing evolved from functional purposes.
These are very, very ancient old dances that have been passed down through the ages in Scotland, and they're traditional. All of our dances have stories behind them. They're all traditional and they all have meaning, something indicative to the Scottish people.
Highland dancing was not originally used for entertainment. In fact, it played a key role in the kingdom's defense.
Getting warriors ready for battle in ancient times, especially things like the sword dance where they cross two swords and the dancer has to dance among those swords and not touch the swords, would really build your agility and it builds stamina. It really is tough to go through one of those dances.
They would compete in the Highland dances to decide who would be the king's or the leader's bodyguard, because that's who he wanted, you know, by his side taking care of him, the most strong, the most agile person. Now, of course, it got passed down, and as you know about women, if a man can do it, we believe we can do it just as well. So you'll still see young men dancing, but we outnumber them 10 to 1 because it's kind of become more of a playing field for females. But the men, when you watch a young man dance, you're probably seeing a more traditional form. We're trying to encourage it because it is a tradition and it's great. Hopefully all those young people that competed today will someday have children that they'll bring to us for us to teach them the dance, or they'll teach them the dance themselves. And it'll get passed down. It'll keep the spirit alive.
The three national instruments of Scotland really are the harp and the fiddle and the bagpipes.
When you hear a bunch of bands playing Amazing Grace, all of a sudden you're caught up in the moment. You realize you're part of something that's been around for thousands of years.
Although the instrument did not originate in Scotland, the bagpipes provide a constant soundtrack to the Highland Games.
The Scottish bagpipe originally, back towards 1,000 years ago, was originally considered a weapon of war. And what happened was, of course, they were fighting against the English. The English were drastically outnumbered them. So they would have 20 or 30 people with what is similar to this up over a hillside where they cannot be seen, and they would start playing some tune or start playing something, and the British would be psyched out by it because they thought there was, like, you know, thousands of warriors up over the hill all screaming and hollering. And eventually they caught on.
Fiddle has been really important in Scotland all through history, and in the 18th century it was really important in the Scottish Enlightenment, and there were some great players. It's called the Golden Age of Scottish fiddling because so many great tunes came out of there, and dancing and so on. It's exciting to be in a place where people choose to celebrate Scottish heritage and appreciate, you know, and learn about Scottish fiddling. And that's why it's special to be in a place like this, because people are focusing on that heritage, and you know, I think everybody appreciates when they listen to Scottish fiddle. They really can get into it and appreciate it.
says that the harp originated in their country. So in Ireland you say the harp originated there, in Scotland they say it originated in Scotland, because it goes way back. It goes all the way back to Egyptian times, and in Scotland the harp is very much part of the cultural identity.
Originally, before the clan wars, the harp player was the second in command for the chief. He was kind of like the chief advisor. Once the clan wars started, the harp's not very intimidating. So the bagpipes came in, and then the bagpiper replaced the harp maker.
Perhaps the game's biggest draw, the heavy games bring ancient events to new audiences. Many who attend the games say it's their favorite aspect.
To be able to compete in the Scottish Games the way they were competed back in the 1600s is very exciting. It's very fulfilling to be able to get back to your roots.
It's the second oldest sporting event in the world behind the Olympic events.
The skills participants display in the modern games grew out of a history of war in the homeland.
Clans would bring in their strongest men, and they would have a stone throw, which originated the Braemar stone. Throw it for distance to see who was the strongest member of the clan. And that's really where it began. And
regardless of the strength of the competitor, there's a lot of finesse involved in it.
The caber that we threw today was 17 feet long, 170 pounds.
And what they're trying to do with that is run with it and flip it so that what's down goes up and over away from them, and they're trying to get it straight away.
Well, when somebody backs up with one of those and about to lose it, the crowd moves away very quickly.
To me, that's pretty amazing. I'm really not quite sure how anybody can do that without dropping it on their foot.
When you come to compete, it's 45% strength, 45% skill, and 10% grunt. And that grunt is two things. When you're there that day, when you're throwing, and the effort that you put into the throw. So if you hear that real big, ah, that athlete thought it was a good throw. Or he's missed his kilt, one of the two.
Scottish clans from across the country came to the Edinboro Highland Games to share the tradition and history of their family clans with others.
I think it really is a lot about your history, and people are fiercely proud of what clan they belong to.
Different tartans color the Highland Games. Each tartan has its own association with a Scottish clan. The clan system joins Scots in times of war and peace and remains a large component to the games.
The clans were like a community, so they would stick together, and you would have different families, but you would have the stronger families. So for instance, Clan Donald or the MacDonalds are a very strong, old, traditional clan that not only had the Donalds, but had many other names affiliated or associated with that clan. Same thing with the Campbells, same thing with the McTavishes, same thing with any of the Stuarts. So you have this main clan family, and then you have many family names that are associated or septs of that clan.
The motto, for example, of the Clan Cameron is unite. That kind of says a lot about the clan system. There's a lot of uniting, and that's best demonstrated by the number of different names. This is the various septs, which means families that, if you like, in the old days, if the Camerons went to war, they would join forces.
Technically, in my past, one of my ancestors' last name is Stewart, so I'm actually a Clan Stewart. Of course, they're really not popular amongst a lot of the Scottish people because they were actually British family. So we're kind of their family was kind of the overlords of so they were not really popular all the time.
On my grandfather's side, we were actually the Gun Clan, G-U-N-N, and they had a very strange motto. It was just peace or war, so it was a very direct, we can be friends and we can be foes, whatever you want.
Clan Douglas is a border clan. We're on the Scottish-English border, and we've always been in trouble.
It wasn't really till almost modern times, till the 1800s, that the clans started to get associated with the different tartan designs.
Clan Mackay would be my actual family clan. but you'll find that most guys that come from Scotland tend to wear a kilt that's, they may wear their clan tartan, but they just tend to wear something that will look good. You know, and as I say to a lot of our customers, if it's going to be, you know, wrapped around your backside for the next 40 years, you probably want to have something that you quite like the look of, you know, rather than something that looks loud and not so proud.
This is a clan crest, and if you would see somebody with a coat of arms, the shield basically, this would be what goes on top of it, and that would represent the bond with your family. If you notice, there's a belt that goes around there, and that just signifies their particular family.
Today, camaraderie between clans is more common, but history remains an important consideration.
We've got various clans that we're tight with, and there's other clans that we're not so tight with. But again, that was history. And way back.
A constant theme of the Highland Games is the concept of the Scottish spirit, marked by resilience and passion.
It's a spirit that cannot be contained.
It's basically an introduction to the Scottish culture for most people that have never been immersed in it.
It's very exciting. For me, just even getting here and starting to hear the music play, it gets me going. It makes me feel like I'm back in Scotland, so love it. Absolutely love it.
It's a way of trying to keep some traditions going for the younger generations that don't have any exposure to that in this country.
Like listening to the bagpipes stirs me to hear the bagpipes every time. My little daughter didn't even know she was Scottish, and when she heard the bagpipes, it stirred her. You know, she just instantly fell in love with it.
I think it's a great way, especially here in America, for Americans of, say, Scottish ancestry to, in fact, see a little bit of what it's all about.
Well, I think it's important for everybody to learn a little bit about their culture and their roots.
I would have to say that the Scottish people are some of the most remarkable people that I've ever met.
They'll be the nicest, kindest people. You know, you very rarely hear anybody going over to Scotland and not having a good time.
Every person I ever met that's Scottish has like a really deep bond inside them with their heritage and their history.
A fiery bunch of people for the most part.
Everybody works together, they help each other. You know, out there in that mud pit or out there in the lawn right now, you know, there's people out there helping each other because it's a tough time to do it. They're great people, I enjoy being with them. Wow, what can you say? They're just fantastic.
It just is a spirit that cannot be put down no matter what you do. It just bursts through, it's strong.
In America, it's kind of weird. Our history goes back a couple hundred years. Here you're talking about history goes back thousands of years, so far back that we've lost it. We're not sure. It's like rumors, myths, fables, that kind of thing. And that's kind of cool because that's where like stuff like, you know, heroes come from. The whole William Wallace thing. You know, how accurate is that? We don't know, but it's a heck of a good story.
The Scottish spirit? Comedically fiery.
It's funny how, you know, at first something like putting on a kilt for a man might feel, you know, funny. You might feel a little bit different, and then after a while you get used to that, and it just feels Scottish.